Hey everybody, what is going on? It's your boy Is33 bringing you another patch rundown. Today we're running down patch 9.17 and honestly this is a very big patch. I've just read through some of the patch notes and the first big one that I need to point out is Pantheon is now added into the game mode. Now Pantheon is a 5-cost Dragon Guardian that has an ult similar to Vi's as far as I'm aware. This ultimate basically dashes him towards the furthest character away by leaping into the air. Once he lands on them, he stuns them for a variation of 4 to 8 seconds and does 15% to 45% of their maximum health as magic damage. They also get a burn, which obviously has been nerfed in this update because Grievous Wounds has taken a bit of a step back. And as a whole, it's true damage, the burn as well. I didn't know. So, moving on. The first major nerf, I would say. I wouldn't call it a nerf to some people, but a nerf to me in the sense that they removed 1-cost champions from the first carousel in the game. Now, this is a nerf in a sense that certain people, like myself, would prefer getting a 1-cost champion in the first carousel, as you're able to build it up a lot more easily early on to get a level 2 champion for when you start facing people. Now that's, of sorts, a little bit of a nerf to me. Furthermore, ghost armies now have a trait bonus, they're spooky. I don't even know what this means. I'm presuming it's because when champions are just stood there doing absolutely nothing at full health, I'm presuming that means they're the spooky thing. Oh well. And attack speeds received a very big buff that I don't like at all. The attack speed cap has been increased from 2.5 to 5. So in a sense, if you're building Rageblade Jinx or anything with a Rageblade, you're basically going to have a lot of attack speed being thrown out there, and Jinx is going to become that is going to be really annoying coming up against Jinxes. So much so I might want to take Jinx now. Anyway, we move on to traits, and Assassins have got a bit more of a rework to their actual trait bonus. As a whole, instead of it just being flat 125 crit damage, it's now down to 75 with 10% crit. I like this change in a sense that it makes them a little bit more balanced in a sense that the crit chance obviously is known now. Like, you weren't critting all the time with Assassins, and now you've got a bit more, I'd say consistency, but you know what you're going to get. The 6 champion trait bonus, I mean, you'd see the crit damage has gone down a lot, so you're not insta-ing things anymore, which is okay, I guess. It makes Assassins a bit more fair, but obviously you want to burst things as an Assassin. Anyway, Hextech's item duration, basically EMP effect, has been lowered by a second. I'm grateful that they've done this, and there's been a lot of changes to Hextech, obviously, this being the second patch since them being added. They've obviously had to fix a load of bugs and effects that Hextechs have brought in. But obviously the second change does mean that people are going to be firing in more damage, and I honestly feel that that should be a good change overall to the balance of the game. Moving on, we have Nobles, and finally, ladies and gentlemen, and I mean finally, they've received a nerf. Granted, it's not much of a big nerf. They've reduced the amount of armor to 50. See, the one issue that I have with that being so high is you're basically making Guardians useless, as they basically gain 50 armor. That's the whole point of people taking Guardians. And the healing's gone down by 10, which, yeah, that's kind of good. It doesn't help when you're running up against a Garen who's got Noble buff, but yeah, that's good. Anyway, we've got Rangers now, and the double damage effect's been given a buff by 5%. Obviously, the chance for that to proc was quite low, as you very rarely saw it happen. And with that in mind, it does mean there's more chance of that proccing early in a team fight and actually doing a lot of work for you. Nevertheless, we do have shapeshifters. Shapeshifters have received a buff, all of them as well. They've now, in a sense, made it a lot easier for them to transform. The only one that hasn't been affected has been Lise, but she did receive changes a couple of patches ago, obviously to make her a 1 cost, and as a whole, they've made Jace a little more usable. Well, he was already usable. They've made him a bit more balanced in a sense that he's still transformed now, and obviously with that in mind, he can basically fire off shots as soon as he gets the max mana. That is actually a really good change. Plus, Shyvana now has received a buff that she already didn't need, because Shyvana, let's be honest, was already broken. And finally, Yodels have received a buff as well. They've made their dodge chance slightly higher, which I'm guessing is going to be very useful and see Yodels a bit more back into the ranked meta. Moving on, we have some champion adjustments, and Graves, I'm sorry to say, has lost his flamethrower. They've narrowed his shot when he has rapid fire cannon. So people who run the Graves that I like running with the flamethrower effect, in a sense where you run red buff, rapid fire cannon, and rage blade, you now have a more precise shotgun blast than an actual flamethrower. Moving on, we also have a buff to Warwick. I mean, I get that he needed that buff because when running brawler comps, obviously he was the weakest brawler and he very regularly died quite quick, so he didn't really get to shine. Moving on, we have Lissandra. She's received a good buff. I'm happy that they've changed her slightly, and as a whole, I'm hoping that she becomes a bit more viable into glacial comps, as, let's be honest, Lissandra, yes, she's good in terms of AP damage, and they've now made that scale a lot better, but she was quite easy to jump onto and kill. If you run like an assassin or even a knight could walk up and hit her immediately and she died quite quick. Anyway, moving on, Lucian now has attack speed scaling with his ultimate, which I guess is good. Like, they already made that shot scale with AP, why not make it scale with attack speed? Finally, Gangplank has received a nerf. Yes, the long-awaited nerf on Gangplank has happened. His barrel chain no longer does insane amounts of damage. It's just lost about 100 damage on every level, and that is honestly quite good. Finally, the last champion change is Leona. They've just made her stun less scale less than what it used to, and that change I can get behind because that stun is a nightmare to come up against when you're going up against Guardians and Nobles, and we're going to see a lot more of Nobles and Guardians, I feel, and Dragons. Oh god. And lastly, last major change is obviously healing. As I alluded to earlier, Grievous Wounds healing reduction has been reduced from just 100% flat to 80%, and that change I can get behind because they're lowering the amount of healing options in the game, and the rest of the healing things have lost 10%, maybe 20 here and there. And Redemption's heal no longer does a flat 1,500, it's down to 1,200. These changes are honestly quite good. It does mean that Grievous Wounds no longer absolutely destroys Nobles, but it's still a good thing to get nevertheless. Finally, we got some bug fixes. Obviously, they fixed a load of disable effects that Hextech do, and they've also made it so Rek'Sai targets the longer distance champions. She also is fixed where she can now jump into spaces instead of floating in the air basically in one spot. Ari no longer casts her attack into nothingness. So Lucian now correctly triggers launch attack effect, so Static Shiv and Hurricane now work on his first shot after his dash, so that's a loosely effect with the attack speed change. So I'm presuming they reworked his actual ability slightly. So Lunance now targets on a spell that's been died. Yeah, so if the target's died when Lunance has been activated, it now procs. Vi ult sometimes. Chain hitting the same enemy, yeah. That's happened to me a couple of times where Vi just somehow hits the same enemy twice in a row with her ultimate. And little legends that get inside the initial shared draft barrier before it comes down and now booted out. Finally, a good change to that. If you don't realise, in the first shop phase, people were able to get out of the, animation, go immediately into the ring, and in a sense, get easy pickings on whatever they like. So that change is really good for us, or people who play this game. Lastly, the dragon now has a new fireball effect. You can finally mute player pings and emotes by the new and improved scoreboard. Thank goodness they've done that. They've needed a scoreboard other than this sidebar over here to basically make it so that you can actually mute or get rid of people annoying you in game. Like, that change has been needed for a long time, and thank goodness they've added it. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this patch rundown. If you enjoyed this, leave a like down below, subscribe to me around here, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.